Mike?
Yeah, I'm here.
We are on live here tonight. This is the August 11th, 2020 Sewer Commissioners meeting. It's a regularly scheduled monthly meeting. I will begin by reading this document. It's a right to know now meeting checklist. As the chair of the Goffstown Sewer Commission, due to the COVID-19 outbreak and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video and other electronic means. The Sewer Commission is utilizing a telephone conference line for this electronic meeting. The public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following telephone number: 603-766-5646, and using participant code 785645 followed by the pound sign. We have provided, the town has previously gave notice to the public how to access this meeting using the available telephone number with the posted agenda. If anybody has problem with the telephone access, please dial 603-660-5000, 5000. In the event the meeting is unable to in the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that later time. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting and shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also please state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. That is for people who are calling in on the phone. The other commissioners and DPW employees and our sewer department employees are here in the room. We will begin with Lynn.
Lynn Pooler, Sewer Secretary.
Corey White, Public Works.
David Pierce, Commissioner. Tim Rodman, Commissioner.
Rob Trapaz, Commissioner.
Mike Gergo, DPW.
Chet.
Chuck Owens, Select Board Rep, and I'm the only one in the room.
Mike.
Michael Trank with Bill Tanner and Associates, and I'm the only one in the room.
Thank you both. Okay, we generally open every meeting with an opportunity for public comment. At this time, we are opening the floor for public comment. Anyone on the phone for public comment?
No.
Okay, so we'll just give it a minute or two to make sure they were able to dial in for public comment. Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment section of this meeting. If someone does have to call in later, I will reopen for public comment. Approval of the minutes, and the minutes were from the July 14th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve the July 14 minutes.
It's been a motion to approve the July 14th minutes, July 14th, 2020 minutes as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Minutes have been approved.
You have 721 also.
We have another set of minutes for July 21st. This was an emergency meeting we called to address some issues that came up after our regularly scheduled meeting. So it was out of order, but it was publicly noticed and it was a public meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from July 21, 2020.
I'm actually going to suggest one change to the minutes.
As amended.
Under Park Lane, Lynn, where it says change of use,
Okay.
can you just ensure that all of the entries have sewer in front of that? I see one that doesn't. I just want to make sure that it's clear that it's separate and distinct from any planning change of use.
Okay.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve the amended minutes, and they've been amended by Rob Trapaz. Any other discussion items on the minutes of July 21st? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
I'll
David?
second it, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I know you did second it. David?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Approve the minutes of July 21st with amendment. Our regular meeting begins tonight with an item on the agenda, the VACCON charges. Each of the commissioners has been given a memorandum prepared by Lynn. It shows what we have used in our total maintenance between Public Works and our 25% share. As of April, we have been billed for $844.50 for maintenance and $16.75 for fuel. So when I read that, I was wondering if we have a report from either Mike or Corey on how much the VACCON has been going out when we only use $16 worth of fuel.
Can I say something?
Yes?
The top sheet you're looking at was just for the month of June.
All right.
The maintenance charges are through June, and it's a total of $844.50. The charges only occurred in April, no other month. And the fuel has a total of $117.86.
Okay, excuse me, you did put that on the note, and I did not see that. So we had $117.86 in total fuel so far that we've been billed by Public Works. Now, I know there was a long area there where we were under the COVID-19 shutdown and there was not anything going on, but I wondered if Mike could give us a rundown briefly on how we have split our time with DPW with the VACCON in the past. How do we proceed with that
As
process?
far as the maintenance goes,
Sewer line maintenance, not maintenance on the vehicle,
sewer line maintenance, we pay for the employees on an hourly basis.
okay? Do we have a prescribed area that gets done on a
It's a three-year cycle,
3-year cycle?
and it's usually about 47,000 square feet, linear feet per year,
So,
average.
so we have been on a 1/3 of the system annual cleaning,
It's scheduled every year, yeah.
okay? Do we know how we're doing with that so far this
Haven't
season?
done any of it so far.
Okay. Do we have any assurances from Public Works that we will be getting some of this stuff done?
Probably not.
No, that's not acceptable.
That's, it's not my deal. It's us. It's whoever the upper management or Adam or.
Well, then I will
That's
contact, if the commissioners will allow me, I will contact the DPW director and see what we can do to get this boat floating and moving in the, because we do have a 25% stake in it, which means I would like to see at least a portion of our third done, because that's how it's always been for our stake in the machine and the maintenance. I'll contact, with the commissioner's permission, I'll contact the DPW director and work out something with him and get some assurances that we're going to get going on this and get some of our lines cleaned. You said approximately 40,
It depends. It's 48, 43, depend, each year is different. you
I'll put
know.
40,000 as an average,
Okay.
average lineal
Feet.
feet of cleaning.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Does any of the other commissioners have anything to add on this subject while we're on the VACCON?
I was just it appears that the repairs, it was one incident.
It's broken down more than it's used.
Yeah, they're having a lot of issues with it.
A lot of issues
Well, I do know that it's on CIP for replacement.
in 4 years.
Well, they may end up bumping it up if that becomes the case. And the commission, we are responsible for a 25% stake of a $500,000 machine. So I think we need to get with DPW and find out when they plan on presenting it, because we have to budget that money in our repair and maintenance budget line that year.
They put it in CIP for the amount of money that we need.
Right.
2024, 25. 2024, 25, somewhere in that.
Okay. Well,
Bristol.
from the sounds of it, it could be coming up sooner if it's going to become overly costly to continue to work. And I'll talk with the director about that, and I'll report back to the commission on the status of the machine and his thoughts on the replacement schedule at the next meeting.
What were the repairs like last year?
Oh, I don't know what last year was, but I do know, and Corey can probably back me up on this. I'll let Corey tell, because he probably has a better idea of what's been fixed.
This year, they're having a lot of issues, it's just that it won't start. It'll only start with ether, and that's why this bill went to McDivot's, because every time we'd go to get the truck, if we had an emergency, you couldn't get it started, you'd have to call Zeb or somebody.
What's happening, do they know?
They went to McDivitt, they said they found a couple things, sent the truck back, and we've been understaffed, so nobody's really used the truck. We go to get the truck, same thing, it won't start unless you give it ether.
Is the fuel draining back to the tank? Is that, it's getting airbound?
No, it's, the fuel's there.
Okay.
It was doing the same thing just a couple of weeks ago. They sent it back to McDivitt to have it looked at again, and they sent it right back, so there's nothing wrong with it. Started finding their parking lot. So I know it went out yesterday, so I don't know if Joe ended up having to use,
No, he didn't have to
Actually
use that
started.
either, it started.
I talked with somebody at DPW about this when it was discussed, and they talked about putting a new motor in that truck. And the expense of a new motor would seem to me to be a foolish expense for something we're going to get rid of within the next couple of years. I would have a discussion with the Public Works Director and see what his thoughts are, and once again, I'll get back to the commission and let them know what the DPW is thinking.
the truck's overweight as soon as you put
Well,
water in.
overweight's not what we're talking about, it's the fact that it's not available to use. And if we have an emergency, and we can't use it, we probably should contact Belmore and try to get them on
I
tap.
already have.
You have done that?
Yep.
Thank you.
They're on a rental, we rent it,
No,
or they service.
if we have an emergency and the vac-on's down, I talked to the owner, and he was fine with not, having to get them under contract. It's just a nice thing for them to do for us if we
So
need them. It's
we
just a phone
We rent
call.
the service truck and people.
I believe that they supply a bid to the state of New Hampshire annually, and I believe they are the state bidder for that, so whatever their state bid is probably the rate they're gonna rent it to us for, whatever their state bid rate as a municipality. But we can confirm that with Ray Belmore
Yeah.
sometime. It's not critical, it's great that we have him as a backup.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple other vendors out there too. It's not the only one on the block.
Well, we should then, I should ask that between the two of you work together or get a list together of additional vendors and make sure we have a backup plan in place that, if you haven't already done it, and we haven't been told about it, so if you could give
Yeah,
us,
there's a list of vendors on my phone
okay, well,
that in case of emergency.
okay, good. Thank you. Anything else, Rob or David?
Good.
Good, thank you. Old business, we have sewer use ordinance change following zoning. I'm going to go to Rob on this and lead on this one.
Actually, I'm going to go to Mike Trent because he hopefully has the updates.
Mike Trank, did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I'm not sure what in particular you wanted to focus on, but I was asked to provide a definition, if you will, of change of use. So I did. I put one together. It's probably longer than it needs to be, but I did put a definition of change of use together that could potentially be used for the for the sewer use ordinance. I'm not sure if it would go beyond that, but I did send that over to Mike. I don't know if that's been circulated or to whom.
We circulated to the zoning, but I haven't had a chance to go through it yet.
Okay.
So, Mike Trank, this is Tim. We were talking about the possibility of our change of use following our zoning for the apartment, I believe, is what we're zeroing in on right here. We talked about this at the last meeting and whether it would need to go to DES for review or not. Do you have any opinion for us on that at this time?
If you change the sewer use ordinance by adding this change of use provision or definition to it, I would recommend that it go to New Hampshire DES for review and approval.
So if we were to give you some language at the close of meeting, would you be willing, could you submit that on our behalf and ask for that one couple of sentences to be reviewed in our ordinance? Is that how it works?
It could be done that way, I think. I don't know if they'd need to see the entire ordinance. I would probably want to ask them that question before submitting anything, but if that's the only change that's being made is that, the language about change of use, potentially, we could submit just that to the DES for their review and approval, assuming that, they're willing to accept that.
And are you suggesting that we hold off at this time until the change of use language you submitted to Mike could be reviewed and do it as a package?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I guess we can wait for the review by zoning, and then you can report to us, and we can put 2 items together for Mike Trank to submit, and then,
Yeah, because I think in the back of your packet, back of the sewer use ordinance,
yeah,
there's some sewer user fees.
Yeah.
That also needs to come out, because they're all expired and they're quite old.
so would you please put a list together of items that we need to review and send to DES? Thank you. Commissioners?
So Mike Trank sent you some language.
We'll ask for a definition of the change of use.
Okay.
He gave it to our zoning department to review, correct?
And this is the one about the accessory.
No, it's a definition of
Actual
what is a change
definition.
of use,
Okay.
a definition.
To go into our definitions.
Because
page.
Joanne, planning coordinator, has also asked for that. Because everybody, planning board's change of use is different from zoning change of use.
Okay.
So everybody's, the 3 boards are all they're all different,
Right, and they should all be the same.
so.
And then we also had some language that we were looking to make
Yeah,
concurrent with the accessory dwelling,
accessory dwelling in the back.
such that we didn't have to change it every time
That was
there was a
referring-
number change.
Right, that was referred to as zoning use ordinance. Under the zoning code,
Okay,
there's language for that already that me and Mike has worked on.
okay. And so we're gonna get these in the form of a list in terms of what we're gonna ask
Yeah,
DES to
we'll
approve.
probably have to have a little chit-chat workshop or something real quick to go through it.
Okay,
But at least we're moving forward with it. I'm happy that at least
Right,
we're making
you are.
progress.
right, well, and the only thing is, I think that the sewer accessibility fee is gonna have to be reviewed by DES as well.
Okay.
And, I guess we'll be talking about that next in the agenda, but that,
I'm not sure that's the case.
okay?
Go ahead, Mike, you have the floor.
Yeah, I don't think you need to run, sewer user charge changes or accessibility fee changes by DES. They're more concerned with the regulatory aspects, which would be the sewer use ordinance itself.
Okay. I thought that part of our charge as of late was to make sure that the units for the sewer accessibility fee and the units for the sewer use ordinance, as far as billing, were consistent so that we didn't have
Conflict.
conflict.
We had a lot of that lately.
Yeah, we're trying to resolve, I'm trying to think of a good word for that, but any inconsistencies, if you will. But I think that's an internal thing. I don't, where it involves just the accessibility fee, or the sewer use charge for that matter. I think that's internal.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, while we're on the topic of the sewer use ordinance, I would like to get some clarification from Mike Yurgo on a few items that have been discussed at some prior meetings. Before an applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, before an applicant can make application to the building department for building permits, our sewer use ordinance states that they must apply to the sewer commission if they are on city sewer, town sewer, to make sure we have capacity and such for them to do any building changes or alterations. Is that correct, Mike?
According to the ordinance, that's correct.
So I think that this commission needs to put together some sort of document that clearly states these sewer use ordinance requirements and give them to planning, zoning, and building so that we can make sure that if someone's coming in with a big project and they want to tie into the city sewer, that we have the capacity for them to actually do it. Because I do know of past applications that had to do off-site work, if you want to call it, to tie into the sewer because we already had capacity at the place where they wanted to do their project. So I'd like to get some input from the other commissioners on my thought that I think we need to put together a very clear document that sends these sewer use ordinance requirements up the chain of command to other departments here in town office.
One thing that I did last month is I sent them a copy of that section of the sewer use ordinance to the zoning, planning, and building department.
Okay. But having you send that to them, there's culpable deniability that we didn't understand it. So I think we need to make sure that the commissioners are clear and concise as to what the requirements are for any applicant who wants to build in a section of town that is served by public sewer, because it's entirely possible that if there's not enough capacity, their project cannot be approved at any level until the capacity is available for them.
Isn't it already a planning requirement that an applicant has to demonstrate that they can provide
They do.
wastewater and water
The only time
service?
that gets discussed is when we have two things. One, if they have a TRC meeting and Mike is involved in the application process, because he is part of, I want to build this apartment building and we want to hook into the sewer, and Mike is there to talk for the sewer commission and keep the open lines of communication. But there are other cases when people just make an assumption that they can tie right in because they don't have a TRC meeting.
Right, but regardless of the TRC meeting, don't the actual planning regulations require that the applicant demonstrate that they can adequately serve the use with water and sewer?
David will back me on this one. The only time we ever hear that language is when they're asking for a conditional use permit. Is that correct, David?
And there's nothing in the building, planning board regulations to state that.
Really?
So this is why I'm bringing this up tonight for discussion among the commission, because I think it's time for us to make a very clear statement, document, or something that we will pass on to the other departments that says, look, these are our regulations, this is what they have to do before they can even apply for a plan. Because what's the point of doing all the legwork on a big site plan and then finding out, well, there's no capacity for you to build your project here? Now, we look like the anti-economic development group in this town, and we're just stifling the economy in this town. And I don't want that cloud hanging over this commission. I think we need to be clear and concise and get the message across. So I'm looking for some input from the commissioners on how you think we should proceed.
I'm actually floored that the planning regulations don't require that parcels be served by water and sewer in some capacity. That you would think that would be the first or second or third thing that goes through an applicant's mind. But, yeah.
I believe they think that if there's sewer in the street, I can just hook up to it, pay my fee, and I'm good to go, which isn't always the case.
No, it's not, but I mean, if there's no sewer there, then they don't know they need to start digging
Well, if
test
there's no
pits and-
sewer there, they know that, and they have to do septic system plans through DES.
Or if it's a sewer in the street, they might have to extend the sewer.
Well, right, but I mean, it still needs to be approved, is my point.
Right,
Just
when-
because it
when-
exists doesn't mean you have the right to,
When they
Right.
take out a building permit, if it's not on sewer, if it's septic, Mark makes sure that they have some kind of a septic plan. They can't get that building permit unless they have
State
an
approval.
approved septic plan from the state. So at that point, maybe he should do the same thing with sewer. You know, you don't have the septic plan, but before the building permit's issued, they need to make sure that, you know, they
well, I
can
mean, there
hook
could
the
be a case where
sewer.
we can't serve it. Or sometimes, in some cases, it's cheaper to build an extension than to build an on-site system. Yeah, I guess the short answer is yes, if people don't know that they need to come to the sewer commission for their sewer needs.
Before they plan a project. Before they even start drawing plans up for a project. I want to build an apartment building on this lot. Is there sewer capacity for me to build an apartment building on this lot?
Right.
But they don't do that. Nobody does that. So this is why we are where we are right now with this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have applicants come in with here's what the use is and here's my conceptual plan. And, then we can answer them.
We could even calculate some flows at that point and decide if what you do at a TRC meeting normally, if it's being done to our satisfaction.
Yeah, as long as you not go beyond 75% of the capacity of the main, then you're on a consent decree.
But it probably has economic factors and, maybe they don't want to put in a hairdressing salon
Right.
and they would rather have
Well,
office
that-
space knowing.
Well, see, that's about accessibility
That's
fees
accessibility fee.
and
It's still
use
sewer.
or use charges. I'm talking about the fact that they have to have permission from the sewer commission to tie into the sewer with their building.
Absolutely. All I'm saying is flow, whether it's the
It doesn't matter
sewer
what,
bill, the accessibility fee, or, it all comes down to do you have the gallons capacity?
Or maybe you should have, make a suggestion that maybe you should have somebody from this board go to the planning board when they have their meetings and have that discussion with the planning board.
I think it's an applicant's
since I'm already there, I'd be
responsibility.
happy to, as long as I have the consensus of the other committee. David's there as well.
Can we use
Put it on agenda.
a real-life example to discuss this process?
Well,
The one-
you
So,
have one?
well, I'm going to offer, if one can explain, the largest development that we've recently had that's going to tie into the sewer line is the Mass Road crossing of 41 condominiums. So, at what stage did the developer make his sewer requirements known?
They went to the
To you.
TRC.
They came to this
TRC.
meeting. The engineer, Jennifer McCourt, was at this meeting.
So, at
Representing
that
them.
point, you were aware of
At the TRC meeting, yeah.
the additional flow.
They're lucky because they're going directly into the interceptor. They're not going into already overused clay lines and PVC pipes and ductile iron or whatever else is in the street. But Mike knows about, we had a project that was next to the Bartlett Elementary School that planning reviewed many years ago for the building just looking at the Bartlett Elementary School directly behind it and to the right. They built a great big Morton building. It was all condominium buildings. And Michael explained that. You remember that one where they didn't have the capacity? They had to do off-site? I remember that project. They didn't have the capacity to tie in to Mass Road Sewer. They had to do some off-site
Well,
work.
yeah, there's been a few developers over the years, they have to do an off-site flow removal.
Right.
So you have to do the technology to remove 4-to-1 flow. For every gallon the developer needs, you have to remove, it's either 3 or 4 under the soil use ordinance to get that So you have to make room for them, so they're making room for themselves.
But the point of that example is that they were not an applicant who could just tie in to the sewer in the street and use it. Was not available. They had to work a deal with the sewer commissioners, which was Steve and
Yeah, that was.
Jim Bouchard and
Yeah.
whoever else was commissioner.
Well, we had a few. We had one on Holly Street that did 4 or 5 lot subdivision. You had to do the same thing. You had to replace so many feet of soil line, existing soil line, to remove the I&I out of it.
So this is why I am of the opinion that we need to see applicants with an application for projects that are on sewer come before the sewer commission to be in line with our ordinance to obtain sewer commission approval to tie into the system before they spend a nickel on an engineering plan to design a building and a road and a project.
Okay. It sounds reasonable, Mr. Chair, so
Yeah.
what document
Well, I would like,
Causes that discussion to take place.
I would like to ask Mike Yurgo to ferry out in the sewer use ordinance, the language that we need to have, so we can see it at our next monthly meeting. Give us the chapter and verse out of here, so that we can look at it, and then we can, as a group, put together some sort of a statement that we are going to sign as a commission and send to planning, zoning, and building, that they have to send an applicant to us first, because that's our sewer use ordinance. We don't want to find out after they've spent $300,000 to design a project that the sewer's not there, and now it's all on us. It's our fault. I don't want to be that person. And believe me, it may not have happened yet, but it will happen someday. It will happen. So let's get ahead of the curve and make our position known to these departments, and at least we have been upfront with them and told them what we expect.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I can contact Mike and sit with Mike and do this and bring a presentation to the meeting at the next meeting, if you guys would like to do that. I can make time to go down and meet Mike at his office, and that way I'll save him from sending stuff to us. I can kind of do a draft and present it to you guys and
Either
look
way is
at it and
fine.
see what you think.
If you're willing, do it,
It'll shorten the meeting.
do it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have Selectman Bowen weigh in if he'd like to. Do you concur with our ideas here, Chet, or what's your thoughts?
No, I do. I think anything that increases the chances, and I think this would basically guarantee it, that an individual, a resident, a company, whoever, is more aware of what is happening from the sewer commission standpoint, the fees that they are going to have to pay, whether or not it will be functional, what it will take to make it functional, so that we are not faced with folks saying that they are surprised after the fact, is fantastic. The only thing I would add, and someone may have said it, I was listening, but I may have missed it, would be that either the company or the resident signs off on something that signals to us that they understand what's happening, so that nobody can come into us and say that they weren't aware prior to starting their project. But I think we are absolutely on the right track, and I appreciate you asking for my feedback.
I think those are great points. I think the sign-off is the most important part of it, because, once again, there's no plausible deniability that I didn't know about this. Mike Trank, from an engineering standpoint, do you have any comments, or are we just talking about public policy right now?
You know, I think it makes total sense. Yeah, you don't want to have an applicant, find out after they're well deep into it that, that sewer capacity is an issue for one reason or another. And, maybe that should be part of the checklist for the planning board for site plan reviews.
Thank you, Mike.
I mean, the other thing is that the whole sewer use ordinance has the Goffstown sewer construction specifications. How are you gonna have an engineer design your system if you don't know what the rules are?
Well, I do have to say that this sort of came up in the application for the apartments across the street from the Villa Augustina. I asked the applicant at this meeting, sewer commission meeting, if they had information on the discharge from the Villa Augustina, at which time they said no, they hadn't gotten the information, so I suggested that they get it. At the planning board meeting, the night of the approval, I asked the same question and got the same answer. No, we don't know anything about that. So at that meeting, I suggested to the applicant that they need to make plans to keep a live line available from the Villa Augustina to the interceptor during their entire construction project. Because, to my knowledge, that's a 5,000-gallon tank, that's a pump tank, so when it discharges, it sends 5,000 gallons of liquid to the interceptor. So, two things. One, if it just discharged incidentally, because for any reason, groundwater, any number of things got into the tank. Or secondly, if the villa became occupied by a tenant They have to have access to the sewer line to keep their building operational, and the applicant was polite and listened, but really didn't seem to be much worried about it. So I felt like I was wearing my commission hat that minute at the meeting, and I had to bring it up. You can't disconnect the villa from the sewer system to build your new lines over to the interceptor. They have to be able to use their system in the event of that construction going on. So I said it, it's on the record, see what happens, and go from there. Okay. The next item is the sewer accessibility fee. I don't know what this is. Can somebody know what's going on with the discussion now?
Well, I think at the last meeting we had, we were working out the units that were gonna be used for the sewer accessibility fee and staying consistent with the sewer billing units, so that there were not inconsistencies between the two.
Okay?
Mike Trank had been in touch with a consultant, and my belief is that we were waiting for some information back from that consultant to advance resolution of this.
I guess that's you, Mike.
Yep, I have not gotten anything back from him, so I'll reach out again. But, I think it's at the point where we probably just need to maybe come to some consensus amongst ourselves as to what, makes the most sense, and move forward with that.
My recollection was that we've been discussing going back to the treatment unit methodology, but didn't want to get hung up in inconsistencies, because there are some things that would lead us to a half treatment unit, which is the current minimum.
The full treatment unit is a full minimum. One treatment unit
One treatment unit.
per apartment is your minimum.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Mike, you can speak, go ahead.
Yeah, the reason that we're proposing to change the accessibility fee to a flow basis was for that very reason. It's more consistent and probably more equitable. However, what we've since run into is the sewer user charges are still based on the treatment units. And, so that brings up the situation where, you make large changes to the sewer use billing, and, I think we decided a couple of meetings ago that that's something we don't want to get into. So right now, we need to find probably some reasonable way to make some consistency between the two.
I like to always go back to what Steve Crean used to say, that the people who've been on this system for years and years and years have paid their fair share, and it's not fair to let someone come in and start using the system without paying it forward, basically, is what it is with this accessibility fee. And I see no problem with it, because if someone wants to build a residential septic system, they're in for anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 for a residential septic system in this day and age. So a $5,000 accessibility fee paid one time is a bargain in my mind. So I really am not at all interested in redesigning the wheel here. I really think that we are on firm ground. The people who have been on the system for years have paid their fair share, and it's time for the new people who are going on to kick in their share to keep the system operational.
I think in general terms that there's, I'm not aware of any disagreement with that statement in any way, shape, or form. I think what it came down to is presently the current minimum for a one-bedroom apartment would be one treatment unit, which is inconsistent with the flow-based section from DES, which would give you a lower flow for 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings.
Isn't this why we've decided to do the change to our language so that we can do a half a treatment unit for an in-law apartment which has 1 bedroom? Isn't that what part of this discussion
Yep.
has been about?
Accessory dwelling is, yeah, it's a half a treatment unit, but it's also connected to a
It's an
full family dwelling. It's not like having an apartment. Apartment's 1 treatment unit. Accessory dwelling is connected to a regular 3-bedroom house.
Right, so presently, if it's a single-family home,
Right.
1, 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms.
They're
it's
paying.
1 treatment unit,
Right.
which equates to 450 gallons per day.
Not 4 bedrooms, 4 pumps it up, right? 3 is our minimum.
The sewer commission, since we started, has turned a blind eye to the 4-bedroom.
Okay. Well, we don't want to backtrack on past practices, because that opens us up to legal.
So all we need to do is to make sure that the language in the accessibility fee is consistent with what Mike Urigo just said, which I think for single-family residential, we're gonna have our own language, and then you're gonna have a half a treatment unit for an accessory dwelling, and work out the square footage there based on the zoning regulation.
Right.
And then all other applicants would fall under the DES guideline.
We're
It
only,
won't be, because you're still gonna have a minimum treatment unit of 1.
we're only adding in a half a treatment unit for an accessory dwelling based on the zoning of, it was, in our number 650, at zoning was 800 or whatever.
It's 800 in zoning right now.
Right, so if we're near zoning, and we call that an accessory dwelling, and our statement is that if it's an accessory dwelling, we would charge them for a half a treatment unit if it does not exceed 2 bedrooms, or pick a number that we talked about, and that cuts a line in the sand. If they want to build an accessory dwelling with 3 bedrooms,
Then
then
it's-
it's off the table. It becomes 1 treatment unit again.
So, that's all reasonable. What's stopping us?
We're discussing it, I guess, at this point.
So, but that is fine, I think, for residential, right?
But that's the only reason we're talking about it, just for the
No.
residential.
Well, now, so now, if you're measuring in single treatment units, and you're now applying the commercial for an office building or a restaurant, do you charge in whole treatment units?
Yes.
No halves.
The half is only there for, the only place we have a half a treatment unit designation is for an accessory dwelling. Everything is 1, 2, 3, and up the ladder based on flowage.
So if you had a commercial application that calculated out to be 550 gallons based on DS chart, then they'd be charged 2 treatment units because they're over 450.
Yes. We're not gonna split hairs on commercial development, because we're gonna be into a whole process of trying to calculate what they tell the flow is gonna be. And then how do we actually know what their flow? We don't regulate their water bill.
Well, but that was the whole purpose of that table, right? And we just used that for the barber shop.
We kinda made that work.
Okay, bad example.
It is a bad.
Yeah, that's a bad one. Look at another one.
I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think we should consider a half a treatment unit for anything other than the express half a treatment unit for an accessory apartment that does not exceed 2 bedrooms, because this is about,
Connected to a single-family house.
connected, because this is about a change in state law that gives apartment privileges to accessory dwellings for people to stay in their communities. This has all been driven by state law. This is not something that just we decided to talk about. The state has made a mandate that we help these people and approve projects and make sure that in-law apartments have some ground, that we understand that they're necessary. We don't break our rules and bend our rules, but we have to be very flexible in our ordinances and make sure that they happen.
So recently, there was an accessory dwelling reviewed by the planning board on North Mast, where they'd have their separate sewer line. So that rules, even though it's an accessory dwelling for
It's a new
planning,
connection.
it's still a new connection of 1 treatment.
That sewer line on North Mass, which is referring to the apartment over the barn.
Yes, that's the one,
We're
with-
paying one treatment unit for
Right.
that unit.
they were already paying one
Okay,
treatment.
I just want to clarify, when it's a separate connection,
That law's going
even
to,
though it's called an accessory dwelling.
But Mike was clear, the accessory dwelling has to be attached to the primary dwelling.
Primary, so they,
So we do have,
i.e.,
Consistency.
the sewer line from the accessory comes out the line of the primary dwelling.
or it could be tied into the line on the exterior of the house. They can do that as well, I'm sure, right?
as long as the accessory dwelling is attached to the primary.
But the sewer line that leaves the accessory dwelling could go through the yard, and they could create a connection in the yard to take it out to the main.
That's what we did on Lansing Ave.
It does not necessarily have to be plumbed through the
To the
primary
house,
residence.
no, it's,
Yeah.
as long as the accessory dwelling is attached to the house.
It's, the attached to the house is the
The key.
primary key.
So in the past, calculating restaurants, for example, you would round up to the whole treatment unit?
We run up to the highest treatment unit, yeah.
Mike Trank, does that give you enough to make revisions?
Well, like I said, what we had proposed was, looking at the accessibility fees strictly on the basis of flow and really not treatment units per se. And generating a basis for that charge, which we did. I mean, that's in the report. The issue we're running up against is the actual user charge billing right now is still on the basis of treatment units. So, if you want to stick with treatment units per se, I think that's fine. We can make that work for the accessibility fees.
The only reason I would,
We were looking for an equivalent per gallon cost, and so we factored in, the cost of constructing the sewer system and the capacity and that sort of thing. So that's built into it. So there's a defensible basis, if you will. How you apply those numbers, there's probably some flexibility to that, I'm sure.
so Mike, excuse me, Rob, Mike, this is Tim. So in the event that the sewer commission one day was able to access the water department bills from Manchester and Village Water Precinct and received flow input from the water departments, then we could start talking about using flow as a basis for charging for monthly services or even calculating accessibility fees. But until that time comes, I think we do need to stick with treatment units because we don't have hard data on anybody's flow.
Well, I completely agree with that. For the user charges, again, we were looking at it from a strictly flow perspective for the accessibility fees in order to assess. I hesitate to use the word impact, but basically, the impact on the sewer system.
But irregardless of what you're basing, regardless of the fee, you're still basing it on gallons. It's just whether or not you're dividing by 450 or whether you're basing your fee on an individual gallon.
That's true, correct.
So basically, your study that you requested is completed for finding out how you determine the cost of accessibility fee.
Right, so I mean, on larger developments, it's less of a significant issue because you're dealing with a larger magnitude and you're gonna run all these calculations and it's gonna end up at some, 45.6 treatment units, and it's gonna be 46 treatment units that they're gonna pay for. When you're dealing with, smaller applications that are adding 20 seats to a restaurant, that could have a more pronounced effect because might push you just over 450 and into 2 treatment units.
Well, then maybe it's time to, we need to adjust, if you want to make an adjustment, make an adjust on our calculations for for the seating calculations as or is that in the DES?
That all comes from DES.
Well, I want to be fair with people, but I got to believe that no matter who uses our sewer system, that we're under-reporting what they're using. I don't believe that if we're charging someone 450 gallons, that they're not using 450 gallons. I believe they're using what's in the code.
Well, the average home, you actually uses a three-bedroom house, you actually uses 210 gallons, according to the DES, 70
I didn't
gallons
hear
per
you.
capita.
I didn't hear you.
Under the New Hampshire DES, the average house is 210 gallons per day of flow that's being used. It's 70 gallons per capita per day.
I mean,
But that's
these regulations
double.
are back from at least the 80s and predate water-saving fixtures, and they're the basis for subsystem surface designs. So they're overestimating flow, but they have been used by many states, many municipalities, and are a defensible basis for calculating flow.
Right.
And I in no way want to get away from that. It's just we need to figure out, are we going to do whole treatment units in terms of, the accessibility fee, or are we going to do it based on the dollars per gallon?
Can we have a split in how you round the flow to treatment units? So if the treatment units are
I know where you're going.
10 or less, round up. If it's over 10, whatever the calculation is, you round down the nearest whole treatment unit. Because at that point, once you get into 10, 20 treatment units, there's so much looseness in the mathematics.
I thought you were going to say,
Err on the side of rounding down.
I thought what you might be going to say was that, let's say it got to be 50%. So if you were at the 50% mark or less, you would round down to the next one. If you're if you're above the 50% mark in terms of flow calculations, then you go up to the next one. Pick a line in the sand where you're going to round down and round up, and if it halfway is the line in the sand we established, then that's what we use.
I think that's what I was just saying.
Well, I didn't hear you say,
You pick a line in the sand, and if you're below that,
I don't know what you meant by 10.
well, when you take the flow units for the accessibility, and you divide it by 450, I mean, if it comes out to 10 or less treatment units, you round up. But if it comes out to over 10 treatment units, well, you're gonna round down.
And that's going to be that'll probably be used very infrequently because most of our applications are under 10 treatment units.
Then we can discuss what that line in the sand is. Is it
Well, I was
8 or
thinking-
10 or 20?
My expectation was that the consultant that Mike Trank engaged in was going to have something that he'd seen before that related directly to the situation at hand and would offer a solution and not have us recreate a wheel. Mike, help me out here.
I would prefer everything rounds down to 1 treatment units. Give the benefit of the doubt to the customer.
Do here.
Hang on, Mike, 1 minute, David was talking.
Yep, to give the benefit to the customer, and no matter what the mathematics is, dividing by 450, you always round down.
I disagree with the whole theory of rounding down all the time.
Well, can I make a
Well,
suggestion?
I was going to, Mike Trank had the floor next, please, Mike?
Yeah, all I was gonna say is, I was just trying to get, basically feedback, if you will, maybe more from a professional or philosophical standpoint, from somebody that does, user charges and these fees day in and day out all the time, as to whether he thought it was reasonable to have a system where your basis for, the accessibility fee would be strictly estimated gallons of flow, at X amount of dollars per gallon, combined with, in the same system, billing for usage, which is based on treatment units. That was my only question to him.
Mike, you have a
I don't
suggestion?
know what he,
Probably the best way to do is actually, you can round to nearest half. So let's say if you're at 45, 0.45 treatment units, you round it up to the half a treatment unit.
Well,
And the same thing, if you get 70, if you're at 70.75 or below, it would go to the half. If you're above that, it'll go to the whole.
you're splitting hairs
Well, I don't,
Because, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Rob, you could.
unnecessarily, splitting hairs.
I think a lot of the things that we see are people wanting to expand restaurants. So if you have a always round down, always round up, then, you can calculate that, we can add X number of seats for nothing.
Good.
Well, but, I mean, the whole point is that all the users before this person paid for that infrastructure, and our infrastructure is not getting younger. We're having to replace more of it, and it's expensive to replace. And it shouldn't be on all the ratepayers necessarily if you're adding, if you're taking more from the system that has been there. You should pay for it.
So what's your position? Because you're kind of, I thought you were on one side of the street, now I'm looking at you on the other side of the street.
Well, I think the fairest thing, quite honestly, is you calculate the gallons and you pay for what you're using.
Yeah, but I
That's
don't,
not how we're set
we
up.
can't calculate the gallons because we don't know.
We do it every time. He'll tell you.
He calculates the gallons and he goes to the closest treatment unit and rounds up, is what he's been doing. But I don't think we should go by gallons. I think we should go by treatment units and stay with the treatment units. And my opinion would be that if Mike's doing a calculation and we do 150 jumps, right, Mike? They jump in 150s?
That's only residential.
That's residential does that.
It's more
Commercial is a
commercial.
lot more.
It's completely
More,
open.
more like, a guy puts in a 10-seat restaurant, or he adds 5 more seats, at 40 gallons a seat. That's 200 gallons.
Well, it's and that's on a DES chart.
That's its DS charge, which under the sewer units, all commercial industrial properties go to the New Hampshire DES subsurface regulation for gallonage.
If it ain't broke, why are we talking about it? Because restaurants are complaining that they have to pay too much to add seats? Is that where we are? Is that the bottom line? Is that what we're hearing tonight? That restaurants aren't happy? That they have to pay for extra seats and they don't like what they have to pay for extra seats?
I don't know that. When we started down this road, it was going with gallons, and then we found out that we got into trouble with the sewer billing and didn't want to have two different scales going.
All right.
So how do we rectify that? I mean, that,
If you round down, the customer can't complain.
Yeah, but if you take a restaurant, you take round down or round up to 450 gallons, it's quite a few seats. in a
Yeah, what
restaurant.
he's saying is true, because if you round down and the guy wants to, let's say he wants to add 10 seats, and that 10 seats makes you round down, he could add more seats because you weren't gonna round up anyway.
Right.
Nobody knows.
So you're not paying for it,
Uh,
basically.
but right now with the billing for the restaurants, how is it calculated?
Calculated by the seats and the employees.
Yeah, number of seats and number of employees, and you come up with a number.
Right.
If it's less than 450, they pay 450. If it's more than 450, they pay, and less than 900, they pay 2 treatment units?
I think some did pay a half, I'm not sure.
That's really what this is about, is I don't want to change completely
Right.
what we've been doing. I don't want all their bills to change, because now we have a different system in place.
That's why I was, not to change the thing as far as that goes.
Well, based on your discussion, Rob, I would entertain a discussion where we would have half treatment units on restaurant-type calculations, if that's
Or
what...
any industrial or commercial can go half, should
So-
go half. It's closer to reality.
So if we're doing half treatment units, we're already giving them some sort of a consideration. We're not jumping in one full treatment units, and they're not paying for an extra 150 or 200 gallons they're not
It's closer
using.
more to reality than anything else.
In the spreadsheet I saw from you last had changes in it, in terms of sewer use.
There is existing fees and what the fees should be. And there's a change. Yeah, changes are either, and it's based on that chart is based on was done on a quality building at the time.
If you went through all of those different entities, do you have what the original fee structure is?
That's based on the original fee structures. I researched the fee structures.
I just saw dollars amounts, and
Yeah.
on changes, you have the details.
Those flows and those fee structures, I researched a couple years back. So if you had existing dollars.
I don't know what's being discussed.
Which they paid
here.
for. Then you had change, increase or decrease. Then you have what should be.
Let's do this. Can you circulate that spreadsheet to the commissioners?
Yeah. Pass it,
And then
I
we
can
can,
email it.
and then we can talk about it.
Good.
Because I don't want to change what's been done substantially where we get into differing bills and everything else.
We found, doing that study, found that a lot of them are not paying enough.
Okay, why don't we circulate that spreadsheet and we'll,
That's what the other sewer commission wanted me to do, to redo all the commercial properties and see who's under, who's
So,
over,
Rob-
or whatever.
You're hung up over going to whole treatment units. You'd like to see half treatment units,
But they do already do that.
both the accessibility and the use.
For commercial property.
I guess I'm not necessarily hung up on any unit, other than I don't want to create more problems for us.
No, well, I think the chair's happy with the use being in treatment units. I'm happy with use being in treatment units. The problem comes with accessibility being calculated in flow. And then how do we convert that flow number to a treatment unit number?
The use is done the same way.
So whatever the accessibility number is, if it's rounded to a whole treatment unit, or it's rounded down to a half treatment unit, that then becomes the billing unit too.
Mhm.
So, once again, okay, you weren't happy with my suggestion about rounding down to accessibility fee to a one treatment unit. So would you be happy with rounding down to a half treatment unit?
But what does that do to the existing billing units? So if somebody
It's a
could,
lot easier, because then you, instead of be like let's say a quarterly, I'm going back to the chart, a quarterly would be like a
we're-
150.
This is going forward. If there's slight irregularities in what's gone on in the last 20 years, why are we concerned about it? We're trying to make something simpler for going forward in the future. I'm trying to keep it simple here.
well,
Mr. Yorgel seems happy with half treatment units,
Put it
right?
this way, it's been established in 1986 when we started the sewer building. It's been working ever since then.
Okay, be clear, please. What is working since then?
The sewer accessibility fees and.
In
treatment
what?
units
In what
for
units?
uses. In treatment units.
In
450
in whole treatment units?
whole treatment units and commercial properties based on actual gallonage.
But you said you did half treatment units in some cases, correct?
There was some halves, yeah.
So wholes and half treatment units,
so,
So residential is whole treatment unit.
That's right. We
Except
don't-
for cut and dry.
other than this accessibility apartment, which we all agree on.
Cut and dry. Industrial and commercial properties were based on gallonage, which went to the halves. There's some out there that's been done.
So I don't think, I think what
So gallons to the half, rounded to the
Treatment
half,
units are to the half.
gallons converted treatment units, rounded to the half.
Rounded down to a half, right?
It all depends. If you're at 35, you get half.
It cuts
You're below-
slack for the customer.
Well, that's the way it's been done. I mean,
I don't think we should reinvent the wheel. I think
that's the
we
way
should
it's been
keep
done
going where we
for,
are.
it's what, 40 years now?
Thing is, if
35
you
years?
change that, how you round it now, we're gonna have to go back to all the
No,
current
no,
ones and
no.
change their
Oh, yes, you
monthly,
will,
their
because now you're
yearly.
gonna change all the billing units.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you're gonna have to go
Well,
ahead
and
and
that
change.
was my point, is that I don't want to go change all the billing units
Right, and that's what we
for
would
the
have to
sake of
do
the
if we,
accessibility
Billing
fees.
fee. So the only thing you have to determine as a board is whether you're keeping it at the $5,000 accessibility fee or the $5,333 accessibility fee.
I mean, that math has already
Been done.
been done. I mean, we haven't voted on it, we haven't talked about it substantially, but, I mean, it's been done. So we need to fix the language in the sewer accessibility.
And in the sewer use ordinance.
Well, why don't you drop some revisions and submit them for discussion, so we can have them, instead of having hypothetical discussions about changes to the language. Let's see what the changes are.
You talking to him or talking to me?
Either one, I don't care. It's one. One somebody does it. Do it together.
He's never around.
He's a busy man. Any more discussion on sewer accessibility fee tonight?
God, I hope not.
Okay.
so for the minutes, who's doing what?
Rob and Mike are gonna work it out. They'll text each other and figure it out.
Yeah.
I have a list of questions here under other businesses warranted. First one is for Selectman Barry.
Is he still here?
Are you still there?
Take it about now.
I'm here.
Did the Board of Selectmen have a discussion regarding porta-johns on the waterfront anywhere in the town of Goffstown?
Yes, so when I say discussion, I mean, Selectman Georgiantis prompted me to discuss East Union Street, last night, because we were also discussing, some, ordinance at Glen Lake. And so I had mentioned that there had been issue with East Union Street, the porta potties specifically, at which point, and I also know that I discussed this with Derek briefly the day after our last commission meeting, not the most recent one, but the last scheduled one. And I know that there's a conversation around that still needs to be had with the whole board. As for the parking and the access that I think we also discussed, we are looking at the possibility of going through the process and going through public hearing. I can obviously take any further direction back to the board on that, but it was briefly discussed last night. I know that that Derek was in favor immediately of removing the porta potties from that area as well.
Okay, what are you talking about? What area were porta potties at?
There's some on Glen Lake, so basically there was a connection between Glen Lake and I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a discussion about a porta potty being near the pump station and the access to the water? And
Chad.
you talked about
This is Dave. The park department puts a porta potty at Glen Lake waterfront, across from the kindergarten.
right. So we're talking about two
they-
separate things. So which one do you?
And that's the only porta potty on Glen Lake, and it's under the budget of the park department. I brought up the conversation at the last sewer commissioners meeting about the wisdom of having a porta potty at the pumping station on East Union, because there's a lot of public using that waterfront. And maybe we ought to make accommodations for them. That conversation didn't go anywhere in our last commissioners' meeting. So what did
I
the,
had two. Go ahead.
So what did the select board discuss about East Union Street last night?
It was a brief discussion about potential parking and changes to the ticketing. So there's changes at Glen Lake, and there's also parking issues at East Union, we thought. But maybe I got it confused, so maybe I have to go back to the beginning.
No,
At
what,
our last sewer commission, oh, go ahead.
what I was gonna say is what we discussed at our last meeting was you were going to talk to Derek and the select board about, having a porta potty put down on East Union, put at East Union Street, because currently there is nothing. And Dave was saying it has a lot of use, and they were concerned about
Water quality.
water quality. Thank you.
Okay, well then let me do that separately, because I thought that we were talking about an issue with accessibility at a construction site, and that was the immediate thing to talk about, and then we realized there was no more construction. So I'll clarify that with Derek tomorrow, and we can go from there.
All right, Chet, so, yes, you're correct on the construction site. We did have issues with safety down there. The construction people have vacated the premises. It's been loaned, they put in some boulders to keep people off the lawn. However, at the prior meeting, there was a lot of discussion about people actually having access to the waterfront there to begin with. And do we want people having access to the waterfront at the sewer pumping station? In my opinion, if the deed was researched by Mike Yurgo, and if I'm speaking incorrectly, I stand corrected, but I believe the Board of Selectmen gave over jurisdiction of the East Union Pumping Station site to the Sewer Commission to do as they see fit with the properties. Presently, the people that are using that are going down, they drive their vehicles all the way down almost to the edge of the water, they park within a few feet of the river, and they do whatever they do down there, but then they go off into the woods, and they do their business in the woods on both sides of the landing down there. We have a lot of problems with erosion down there. We have sand and debris running into the river because the people's have vehicle access to down there. I personally, if I had a vote on it, I would close the gate at the East Union Pumping Station, which we don't have. We'd erect a gate, and we would have zero accessibility to any vehicular traffic down there. If people wanted to walk around the gate and walk down to the river, I would say, have a nice day. But having them have vehicle access all the way down to the riverfront is environmentally unsafe and a bad idea.
So, Mr. Bowen, would the select board would we upset the select board if the sewer commission established a gate on that property? Bring that to the select board for a yes/no decision.
Sure, so just because clearly I misunderstood last time we spoke, we are talking about access to that area in two different ways. One is the suggestion of a porta potty because we're worried about water quality. Fair enough. And the second piece is we're concerned about vehicle access causing potential erosion and things along those lines. And we'd like to see if we could close that gate and cease access.
We don't have a gate, Chet. We would have to erect a gate. We don't have a gate at the premises.
So if
Correct.
If the public is allowed to freely use that parcel for their enjoyment, do we have an obligation to provide sanitary facilities? I believe we do. And if, on the other hand, if the property is gated because the sewer commission can do whatever we want to with that property, would the select board have any would they question our right to do that?
Okay, I will bring that to Derek and the chairman tomorrow.
Thank you, Chet.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, next item on my list is for Mike Yurgo and for Corey. I'd like to get some updates on our reconstruction program. We can start with, has the contractor completed all of the underground sewer work at this time? The piping and connections,
The plumbing has been completed.
okay?
They were coming tomorrow to do deflection tests, including the sewer line
Okay,
and TV and the sewer. They still have invert work to do, and also they have inside drops were installed, and paving on Fairview Street.
Okay. So that is ongoing at this time?
Mhm.
Okay. East Union Street. I did contact the Public Works Director, and he informed me that DPW has agreed to take over the project at this point, and we would be responsible for 50% of the paving to the sewer gate. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, you'd be paying for 1.25 inches of the base pavement, so we're splitting the base pavement.
As far as the gate?
As far as the manhole, yes, which is
But-
about 10 feet beyond the manhole.
I did not drive in. Have they ground more beyond the gate down towards the bus company?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so that would be on the town's dime.
Town's
Okay.
dime, yeah.
And did we get the water line installed into the new building?
Yes, we did, that's completed.
Okay, everything's functional and everybody's good?
Yep, more pressure.
Okay,
The town has taken over the project for road reconstruction and
Yes.
sidewalk construction, and you're arranging the paving at some point.
how about the actual paving for the East Union Pump Station? Have you been in contact with the low bidder that we awarded that bid to? Are they on?
No, I haven't contacted him yet, I wanna wait till the base pavement's installed.
Okay, and then we would get our work done? But they have to reclaim all that area down in there and run a reclaimer down
Rather
there.
reclaim as much as they can in the parking lot and the roadway.
I would advise, if you wouldn't mind, you contact them. They may want to come in and reclaim that while the town road is in reclaim status and leave it so they don't have to bring their equipment in on the new base pavement. to
Well, they're
reclaim.
paving them, they're scheduled to pave East Union Friday.
Okay, well then they won't get there in time.
Final grading is probably gonna be Thursday.
Okay.
There was a
I'm-
question brought up by Mike Hillhouse. You know how we have that wall that runs along the property?
On the high side of the driveway?
Yeah.
Yep,
So they're gonna construct a sidewalk along that wall.
okay.
They just wanna make sure that we're not gonna have any issue if they hire a company to come in,
To do,
raise the wall.
I have no
Support this.
problem.
I didn't think there would be.
It's actually in the public right of way, not on sewer commission property.
That's kind of what I thought also, but
It's
They
a-
wanna-
I
they
said
wanna
I-
raise the granite wall?
they're gonna, well, yeah, because you gotta figure that's gonna be
I
at least
disagree.
8 inches higher.
Well, then let's wait, let him finish.
Because once they put the curb in, you got 8 inches that's gonna come up, plus the fill that they've already put in.
Yeah, they raised the
So,
road. quite a
It's
ways.
gonna be,
I know where one boundary marker is on
Well-
the edge of the right-of-way, and it's on the roadside of the wall. And so
So it is actually
My-
on,
my opinion is that that stone wall is on the sewer commission's property.
well, then I would suggest that the sewer commission grant the town permission to raise the grade of that wall and not destroy the bound or reset the bound after construction is completed. Would that be satisfactory, David?
Yes.
Okay.
you know where it is, correct?
Well, if it's the
still-
short wall on the left side of the driveway, town doesn't own that.
Which side of the driveway are we talking, the right side or the?
Bus company side.
As the grade goes up, they have a wall that holds the road up, and is our fence erected on top of that wall?
Yeah, so the fence, they'd have to,
Are they going to reconstruct any fence repairs?
they would have to. yeah.
They
Well, I'm just asking the question,
Yep.
because,
They replaced the fence last year.
okay.
They would have
So it would all
to
have to get
replace it
raised.
again.
So could we have a voice vote, roll call vote by the commissioners to grant the Public Works Department permission to raise the wall as they see fit on the boundary, on our side of the boundary, but making sure the boundary is not destroyed in the process?
And appropriately reconstruct the fence as necessary.
I agree with that.
I will make that motion.
The motion's been made,
I'll second it.
seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, David?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. So if I would ask Corey to relay that to DPW, that the commission has granted DPW whatever they need to do with those conditions. Thank you. Paving at East Union Pump Station, and this goes to Mike Trank. Our Elm Street Pump Station upgrades, do we have any new information on that, or are we still in a holding pattern?
Well, I'm reluctant to call it a holding pattern, but I did reach out to our electrical engineer to get a schedule for completion of the electrical work. So I'm just waiting right now for him to get back to me.
Mike, can I say something as the chair without offending anybody? Your electrical contractor has been dogging us for months on this, and what is the problem?
I wish I had an answer for that, but I don't.
Does any input from the commission wait with you, or should we just leave it alone and let you handle it?
Yeah, I'll handle it. I'll
Could you-
make sure one way or the other it gets done.
Could you please inform him that the commissioners have asked repeatedly about this, and we are unhappy with the response at this time?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Also, Mike, did you get my email on the property and the property deeds to the Elm Street pump station?
Yes.
All right.
Speaking of,
Because we had a deed research done on that property with the easements. And it looks like right now, it looks like the abutter on that property was the property owner, property owner of the easements on the on the Elm Street pump station.
Okay.
There seems to be the errors of it.
okay, so you're working on that as well?
Yeah, we do a deed research. The only thing you can't go is probate court because it's still not open.
Well, thank you for working on that. I know that's kind of an ongoing issue. I want to go back to the East Union Pump Station. We have a fence that extends on the bus company side next to the neighbor all the way to the river. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do we have a fence on the other side?
No.
I think the commission should have a discussion on extending a chain link fence on our boundary, the entire length of that side of the property, because that presently is not developed. And if something goes on at that property, I think I'd feel much better if our chain link fence was in place, showing where our boundary is over there, and keeping any number of people or vehicles from going through that area and into the pump station property. Does anybody have any thoughts on extending the chain link fence?
I would be against that capital improvement until the factory site has been built. Because they're gonna reconfigure the landscape right up to the boundary line.
Well, they're not going to touch our boundary line.
I know, but I'm worried about doing construction 1 foot, 2 feet, or 3 feet from a boundary line when you know there's gonna be earthwork on the other side of the boundary line.
Well, you know what? Good fences make good neighbors, too, and if they're going to be working on their side of the fence, it shows them where our boundary is, and it could be no excuse why they didn't
What problem are you trying to solve, Tim?
access to the pump station from that property, pedestrian access from people driving into the factory property or parking in the gate by the rail trail and walking down and avoiding fencing if we decide to make a decision on limiting access to the waterfront.
Aside from accessing the property at the driveway, there is no vehicle access to that property.
They can park at the gate by the rail trail termination there.
There is no parking.
There says there's no parking, but people park everywhere. Go down to Glen Lake and take a look at what's going on at Glen Lake.
Yeah, but you're suggesting there's vehicles accessing the sewer facility
I'm suggesting,
from the factory boundary line.
I'm suggesting people can walk in from the
Yeah,
factory
Okay,
property.
I agree, yes, they can walk in from the factory site.
So I would like to,
What's,
based on the final discussion by the commission on the
chain
site,
link fence isn't gonna stop that.
well, it'll deter it. Besides, it's our property. I think the property should be properly fenced for security reasons and safety reasons as well. I know we have a fence around our well pit and around the building area, but I don't see anything wrong with having an additional fence which is on our perimeter. It's not unheard of in all kinds of municipal settings to properly fence the property to keep public access off the property. And I don't think it's going to be such an expense that the commission could not afford to make a capital project out of it and do it. So that's something that I brought up for discussion. It can be dropped right now and discussed after decisions are or are not made on what we're going to do about pedestrian access to that site. And I'm going to tell you because I had a personal conversation with Corey Wyke, who takes care of the property down there, And the mess that's in the woods, on that side of the woods over there, leading over to the factory side, is disgusting. I don't want people in there having access to that property. Next thing you know, someone climbs over the fence, and some kid falls in the wet well.
Okay, well, let's have, if there's going to be a gate at the driveway, then yes, I'll consider a fence on the boundary line.
Thank you. Rob? Anybody have any other business that has not been brought up that they want to bring up?
Yes. Nothing, Catherine sent me an email today mentioning our meetings in September and November. September, let's see, the one we have on September 8th, that is New Hampshire State Primary Election Day. There's no reason that we can't have the meeting, we have the room and all that, but she wanted to make sure that you wanted
I would
to
like to
have
be
the
a-
meeting.
I would like to be a poll worker, Mr. Chairman. I'm already signed up for that day.
So would you like to postpone the meeting?
Or reschedule, sir?
Well, why don't you make a suggestion?
I did look, I checked with Catherine, and the following Tuesday, which is the third Tuesday of September, is available at the same time that we normally have our meeting. So 6 o'clock the week following September 8th, which would be
15.
the 15th, is available.
I would not be attending that meeting.
Just in principle.
Getting eye surgery.
Okay, well, then let somebody suggest an alternate date.
What other dates are available then?
I don't know, I didn't check. I can do that, though, if you'd like me to go back tomorrow and check and see what other dates are available. I can do that. If you guys want to tell me if there are certain nights or days that don't work for you.
Thursday nights, I have planning board, and so does David.
Or no Thursday nights.
Correct.
Other than that, are we good?
Rob has his life, so the rest of it's off for him.
I know, Rob.
Right now, I'm not traveling, so,
Oh, you're home? Oh.
So I will check with Catherine tomorrow.
I know we have TV capability in the room next door.
It's not there anymore.
Oh, did they move it at the fire station?
Yes. IT has their offices over there now.
Okay, so, yeah, there's TV capability on the second floor of the fire department, but does the town have a second video conferencing capability over there?
Not in here.
Well, why don't you just get prospective dates and email them to us, and
I'll
we'll
send you
respond.
some dates for that one. And then the next one, October's fine, but November 10th, because we had changed our meeting, that's one day that is not available for us to meet that Tuesday night because
Which
ZBA is
date in
not there.
November?
Tuesday, November 10th. And I checked with Catherine if we want to go the next Tuesday, which is the 17th, it is available, same time.
Well, why don't you send those suggested dates out to the commissioners, and we can all respond by email and come up
Okay.
with a consensus, and you can schedule the room for us.
Yeah,
get it done at once.
And as well as Mike, because Mike said he has, what do you have, eye
Eye
surgery?
surgery.
Eye surgery.
Yeah.
I got two eye surgeries, one on the right, one on the left.
And then I have one,
Wow.
I have one other,
I'm blind in one eye and can't see all the other ones, so guess what?
Is that why Mike had the Excalibur level all those years?
Yeah.
I had a resident come in late yesterday afternoon. He moved into a house, he's been in this house for years and years and years, but they have an accessory dwelling that they have never, ever used, and they have no plans to use it, but they've been paying for 2 treatment units for years, and they're old, and they don't want to do that anymore, so they're wondering what they can do in order to not have to pay the sewer user fee for that second apartment. What do they have to do in order to?
interesting question.
It's happened before, we know about this. Mike, what's the suggested practice?
Well, the accessory dwellings are based on what bedrooms and plumbing.
So
So you're gonna have to discontinue the bedroom,
And remove the sinks and discontinue the
you're
bathrooms.
gonna discontinue the plumbing.
Take the fixtures all out.
okay, because as far, I was
Mr.
under,
Chair?
Yes?
Chair? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chet.
I think if this is the same individual that called me, I believe, Lynn, did he mention that he called the me by any chance?
No, he did not. Are we talking Patane Street?
Yeah, I think so. So I had let him know that clearly, you know, if the accessory dwelling is not used, has not been used, and does not plan to be used, a few things have to happen, including, you know, in addition to just the sewer piece, there's also other issues such as ensuring that there's no oven in there, and cutting the electric to the oven. So I mentioned a number of things, and what I recall, and Lynn, I'm not sure if you got the same response, but what I recall is that then it will undercut the value of the home when they want to sell it. At which point I said, then they're likely, if they're not willing to do those things that would make it not an accessory dwelling unit, I don't know that we can do anything. I just want to let you know, in case it's the same person, that's the response.
Yeah,
that they
it
got.
sounds like it may be, because he said that to me, and because I didn't understand about the plumbing, I told him what I thought, what assessing deems an accessory dwelling, which is, I thought we did the same thing, because we did this with somebody on St. A's, is they had to remove, like you said, the kitchen,
Yep.
just the, nothing to do with plumbing, just the stove, and the access for that, but the plumbing could all stay, and I knew nothing about the bedroom either.
Yeah, the bedroom's gotta go, because you're based on bedrooms, and you're also based on your plumbing. Take the stove, you still can get a microwave, so, you know.
So I think we should need some more information, because we need to know how many bedrooms the house is presently. So if it's a three-bedroom house, then if it's a fourth bedroom, and we've been not charging for the fourth bedroom, and they're already paying for the treatment units,
Well, if it's an accessory dwelling, if it's attached to the main
But if
house.
it's not an accessory dwelling, the number of bedrooms doesn't matter.
the only way it becomes a non-accessory dwelling is to remove the kitchen.
Right, and then that's all, it should have nothing
And
to do.
I'm very sorry that your value on your home is going to go down, but you can't have it both ways.
Correct.
But so if I call him, I'm not going by what Mike says, what he needs to do is remove the accessory dwelling, which would be to remove all what I told him is he needs to remove the stove and the outlet and stuff for the stove, and then Scott has to go
No,
and,
No, that's not exactly it.
no?
no, stove has got something to do with the building department. Sort of division is, you're based on flow. So if you have a bedroom and you pull the stove out, you still have a bathroom, shower, somebody still could live in there, cooking a microwave and a plug-in flat-top stove.
But the town doesn't consider it an accessory dwelling. I'm going by how we handled it with
How
somebody
does the
on
town,
St.
how does the
A's.
town make that decision then, Len, based on what you just said?
I remember we had somebody on St. A's.
I don't want to talk about that, I want to talk about what we got going right here.
Scott wasn't in, so I wasn't able to ask Scott.
I
He's
think
been
we need
out.
some more information before we have hypothetical discussions here.
Chet can, he said,
Jack?
Are we there?
yep.
So an accessory dwellings are slightly different than an in-law, of course, but if it's an in-law, you're looking at fire-rated walls, you're looking at two separate entrances, but some of the similarities between an in-law and accessory dwelling absolutely have to do with the oven. I know that the sewer fees have a lot to do with the fact that there's a kitchen, and if it's the same person, they did not seem willing to want to remove either. Based on, and again, I responded the same way, Tim, that you just responded, which is, if you're not willing to do those things, then it will be considered an accessory dwelling, and there's really no way around that. So, I just wanted to throw, I'm pretty sure this is the same person, Lynn.
Yeah, I think it is too. When did you speak with him?
The first time was probably about maybe a month and a half ago, and then another time probably 2 weeks ago. And it was really, unfortunately, the person did not like my answer, but I told him that it wasn't a personal opinion that I was offering him. I was telling him these are the rules of the town.
Because he told me, I just spoke with him yesterday, and he told me that he didn't want to remove the stove, but if he had to, they would consider doing that. So that's why I'm afraid to call him back.
I think we need to get the building department involved before we talk about anything else, and let the building department
Would you?
talk to the owner, and let the building department explain to that property owner what the rules are around the apartment, and what can and can't, has to be removed in order for it to be considered not in service. at which time that person can make a decision to come to the sewer commission and present the case to the sewer commission about what they want to do in person and make their case, and we can have a discussion.
Okay. I did mention coming to the sewer
Yeah.
meeting, and he said he had time, so that was an option, so I will.
I want to give the
do that.
person latitude
Okay.
to state their case, but I think the building department has to first bite at the apple to make the decisions on what is the building department's opinion
Okay.
of an accessory dwelling or an in-law apartment or whatever they want to call it.
Or is
In the
this
past-
just a fourth bedroom in the house?
If it becomes a fourth bedroom in the house and the kitchen has been removed, then it's not going to be as much of an issue
Or-
to look at it.
Or it could be a third bedroom. We don't know the
It could
size
be
of
the
it.
third bedroom, that's right. We don't know what they have.
The discussion in the past with the building department is they basically take the stove out.
Well, let the building department make the call.
That's what me and Mark have discussed over the past couple of years, and that's what they do.
Okay.
Okay,
Fine.
good.
Building department.
All right, anything else, Lynn?
That's all I have.
I have 3 bills here in the packet that Lynn has asked questions about, so I'm going to refer to Mike. There's a bill from AAA Fay for pumps for a total of $13,466. She's asking about, is this a contracted company? Is there POs? Is there minimums? What's the story with this bill to be processed?
There is to rebuild one of the pumps at the East Union Pump Station.
But under our town rules, anything over 5,000 has to have 3 bids.
3,000, or anything over 3,000 has to have a PO. Anything off over, I think she said,
Well, we don't do POs in the sewer department, do we?
yeah, we do now. We haven't, that's the problem, that's what
Well, I
she's
guess we're gonna
telling me.
start
we
doing them
need
then
to-
if it's required.
She said, well, for something, we didn't have to discuss it at this meeting, but.
No, we do,
something
right now.
Okay, well, Danielle was saying if we want to make a motion for like AAA pump, because I told her it's more emergency type repair work, if we want to make a motion saying for the sewer department that we do not want to require a purchase order for that particular company, we can.
Can we state that AAA pump is our sole emergency vendor, and that way we would be able to pay these bills without
Yes.
the order of, purchase order,
That's
without
what
the order
she-
of a bidding procedure?
Yes, yes, that's what she's saying we can do if we want to say that AAA is our sole and we don't want to go out for bids and we don't want to require a PO for it, we can do that.
I'll let David see that when you're done with it, please.
They've been doing repairs for a minute.
I know they have, but the town has rules, and we're trying to play by their rules.
But we can do, because I asked her that, I said, it's an emergency type.
Can we
company.
approve this bill for
That's, we can
payment
make that
tonight?
motion at another meeting, that's what I'm saying, and this one's okay. This one's all okay to do right now.
This one's okay to pay?
Yeah, yep, they're
So
gonna
it's a
make an
future.
exception right now and let us pay that stuff. It's just for the future.
Well, there's 2 pumps that we got rebuilt.
There's 2 pumps, yeah.
So
They're
there's
both bills, but,
That's the same
there's
thing.
2 separate bills.
right, but they're all set, the other one was less money.
We have another one here, a quote, over 3,000 requires 3 quotes. Dino Construction gave us a bill for $3,800 for something. What's that for, Mike?
That is for the replacement of the water line at the East Union Pump Station.
Okay. Did you get bids from, didn't that go out to bid to,
I had another vendor put a bid in.
do you have those bids?
They're in, well, I have them in my computer.
Again, for now, we're
They're like
okay.
$9,000
Well,
worth.
why don't you submit that bill, that estimate to Lynn, so she can attach it to this bill as a vendor's bid? And I thought there was a third bidder was asked to bid on that. Did the third bidder respond?
There was a third bidder was asked to bid, but never received any.
Did not receive.
bid.
No response.
So what she wants is in the future, that we get POs before we do the work, or, let me know so we can get a
No.
PO before we do the work for things, and.
What's the purpose of getting a PO before we do the work?
We could do it in a case of emergency.
No, what's the purpose of a PO prior to doing the work? Because we make sure we have the money in the fund to pay it? Is that what the PO does?
It's our purchasing agreement, I don't know, I'm
It's our
just,
purchasing policy?
yes.
Well,
Okay.
it typically also would have terms and conditions for the work. So it would outline what the work is and the terms and conditions for payment, typically.
So if you wouldn't mind submitting that estimate to go along with this bill here for the purpose of the finance department having a backup document for this one. Appreciate it. Last one here is Expert Pest Control, Fitchburg, Mass. for $150.
And what she,
Hornet's Nest.
her question is for this, is we have preferred vendors, and she wants
Well,
to
forget about
know-
that right now. Who authorized this?
I did.
And what was it for?
We're taking the Hornet's Nest the size of a basketball out of the generator room.
Okay.
And
That's fine.
why she's
And
doing
that's
that
the
one
same-
is, she's asking why we went so far away to have it when we have local preferred vendors that we should be
That
using.
is a local preferred vendor that DPW's been using for months.
Okay.
Okay.
She's just saying because the auditors are gonna ask these questions, and so she's asking me to bring them forth to
You want to
you.
get 3 quotes on taking a Hornet's Nest out when you...
No, Mike, I think they're
you
asking
didn't
about the
need
fact
quotes
that
for that.
there are pest control services in the state of New Hampshire, as opposed to calling someone from
There are
Fitchburg.
states, they're in 4 states.
Well, their billing is Fitchburg, they don't give us the
So they're
full
probably
state.
main office, but they serve...
Okay,
I'm
so they
just
are a
saying this is
local
what they
vendor,
see.
okay.
This is what they see.
Yeah,
So the short answer is they're preferred because DPW also uses
Right.
them.
that's where I get the name from.
It's fine.
So you're good. Good answer.
So DPW already's been using these folks?
Add their website homepage that shows their New Hampshire address to that documentation.
Okay, would you find out about that? Lynn, you can call DPW and find out about this bill, expert pest control?
Log into their website, they'll show all their business locations and just add it to the
They
documentation.
said, we're all set with all these bills. She talked to Derek, and they're all set to be paid. That she
But that's
isn't
not
going
my,
to
that's
stop
not the
payment.
point of the discussion tonight. The point of discussion is to clear up these problems
Right.
and not have them again.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, but
Are we going to, did we see an increase in our O&M charges because so many people were home during COVID-19? Was there more sewer use than normal? Did anybody track any of that?
I would have to look at the sheets and I didn't look.
I was just curious, Mike, to
I don't
see if
know.
it turned out that because people were home, they had more, can I have that bill, please,
did
David?
I send you
I
one?
usually do a spreadsheet at the end of the year of all the flows and all the bills.
I just want to know if COVID-19 contributed to an increase in our O&M. That's all I'm asking.
I can add it to a spreadsheet and just give me email a spreadsheet to you guys.
Okay, there's the packet, if you don't mind, David, please, and I'll have you sign it. We'll get all three of us to sign it. Is there any other business before the commission tonight?
Have we heard from Waterline? Not Waterline, Water
I
Industries?
talked to Brett. Talked to him, and he's still waiting for an estimate, but he talked to the manufacturer, Goodman Rump, and the billing is gonna cost about $40,000 to get it here. That's the shell. Yeah, that's what he's told me over the phone, and that's just getting the shell here. Now you gotta have somebody strip the existing shell of all the electronics and the electrical, as a contractor, install the shell, and then you have to have all the electronics put back onto the wall and electrical.
What's you looking at total cost on?
I don't know yet, he's gotta email me the estimate as far as the components that are attached to the building inside.
So we're gonna need a full write-up of all the expenses, so we can we're gonna have to grant some sort of emergency funding request for this, because it's not in our budget.
I'm thinking we start talking to a fiberglass guy.
What, bundle buggy? Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like he wants to do business. I mean, how long have we been waiting to find out about, I mean,
It's been 2.5 months about now?
Yeah.
Roughly?
Yeah, around June,
Well-
early June.
He's not,
I mean, if we have to take the building down,
if he's not interested, the price is high.
what if we had a contractor build a building on the site for us?
Is he can do a block building?
I'm asking. I can
I
ask
think
him.
that Mike Trank would probably can figure what the cost would be in converting that fiberglass enclosure to a actual block building, and basically the same thing that you got at Moose Club today. A-frame roof and a block building with siding to match the neighborhood.
Xerox Moose Club Park? I know the guy that's got the plans.
Yeah, I know. I know the guy who was going to design that, but he left.
All right. Anything else?
Oh,
Okay, if there's no more business, Corey, you have anything you want to bring up tonight, because you've been so quiet?
Nope.
Good answer.
Oh, your shelf's coming.
They haven't done yet.
Had to bring that up, didn't you?
still waiting
Well, I
for
mean, you didn't say anything, you gave me, it's a slow pitch.
All
I'm
the
go-
wood-
I'm gonna help
I
him with
got
him.
all the wood.
You did get it all?
I did get the wood.
Yeah, we'll get it done the next couple weeks. All right, well, if there's no more business, somebody make a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn, roll call vote, David?
yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Tim says yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this riveting discussion.
Good night, chat. Mr. Bowen?
Good night.
Good night.